Pledge of allegiance, and we'll get going.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, okay. Hey, Dave, you're just in time. We didn't want you to miss the meeting.
Well, I figured I'd have.
You'd be walking in, you'd be walking out. Okay. Approve the agenda. Does anyone have any questions, additions to the agenda as presented?
No problem. Move to approve agenda.
Second.
Okay, I got a motion by Sean Ryan, second by Amy Jurek to approve the agenda as presented. If there's no other comments, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Okay, passes 4-0. Ken, I assume you're taking this one? Yep. Only one.
All right. So what I have for you tonight is an introduction on a zoning ordinance amendment relating to section 708 for fences of the zoning ordinance. To give a little background on this, if the council remembers back in, you guys looked at it in June, but the planning commission initially looked at it back in May. We had a fence variance request for Joel Wolin over by the Easttown Plaza Strip Mall. That involved a corner lot with a fence request to be 6 feet tall, closer than 30 feet along the side roadway. Based on that review, and during the review, and the planning commission was looking at it, the topic of discussion came up whether that should be something that should be looked at for an ordinance amendment, or if they should be looked at case by case as a variance every time we have that situation come up, whether it be on the side of the house or on the rear, in the case of lots that abut a road on the front and then a road on the backside, like a lot of the houses on 10th Avenue southeast. So, with that, the planning commission did eventually at their July, August, September, and then October meetings look at some language, discuss the merits of that particular issue for the fence height. Ultimately, as the fence height issue was talked about, the planning commission's recommendation was that the fence height issue, which differentiated from allowing within 30 feet of any road right-of-way, to limit that to 4 feet tall and not raise that up to 6 feet tall within that 30 foot. And the reason for that is the planning commission felt that variance request was still the best way to look at that, because there could be unique situations on that particular property at that time that should be looked at, rather than just have a blanket provision that they get the taller fence just because we want to set it at a different setback, whether it be 30 feet or 10 feet from that road right away. They're really concerned about creating kind of a closed-off feeling for homes that abut the roadways, and that was probably the biggest concern we had. And that was actually similar to a discussion the planning commission had back about 10 years ago, when this topic had come up one time before, and the planning commission ultimately didn't recommend any changes at that time either. But what we did end up looking at and finding changes for that are proposed in the ordinance, even though they weren't spurred by the initial discussion, was to have specific regulations put in for clear zone setbacks from trails and roads. So we had some issues where fences were being installed right up against trails, where the property line might be right up against where a trail is installed. But if you got that right against there, and we're trying to either clear snow from that with city equipment, or if you're just riding a bike and you got a fence right on the edge of that pavement, that's an issue with basically safety. A handlebar might clip it, whatever. So actually talked to the city engineer on that, and they recommended the 2-foot clear zone that we have in the ordinance. And then a similar situation has come into play in some of the older parts of town here. If you think of up by CEC building, there's 5th Street Northwest, which kind of looks like an alley, but it's actually a gravel roadway that runs between 2nd Avenue and 1st Avenue, just on the west side of the CEC and the pool there. We have situations where literally the gravel roadway and the right-of-way line are one and the same, and we have fences that have been installed. In those cases, again, we bring a plow through there, just pushing snow up right against the fence. So Glenn and Public Works recommended a 5-foot setback from basically that road right away. It's concurrent with that roadway, it has to be 5 feet back. Basically, it's clarifying that if there's a driving surface there, the fence has to be minimum 5 feet back. It was not written that way previously. So those are two of the big ones. Another one specific to utility easements was kind of clarifying our language. People put fences in drainage utility easements all the time. It's been allowed in code. This language clarifies that they are acknowledging by reading the ordinance that they understand it's going in there. If any utility work needs to be done by the city, they have to remove it at their expense. We had language in there before. It wasn't explicitly as clear as it could have been. City Attorney Scott Briggs had commented on that before, that we really don't need the language in the ordinance, and that people should know their plat of their property and where the easements are and understand that they're responsible. No, most people don't really have a good handle on where the easements are on their property, so this just helps explain that when they're putting up the fence, and we can clearly highlight that in the ordinance for them. And then the other big one is something that Public Utility, or the New Prague Utilities Commission was looking at, and we have a little picture actually in the ordinance, the diagram from municipal electric boxes. We actually had, one of the, I forget what evening it was, either in July or August, we were talking about the fence ordinance amendments, and we had a power flicker actually at our planning commission meeting, and that night there was a power outage due to lightning strike down on the southeast side of town, I think off 10th Street Southeast, and they could not get power restored because fences had been installed right up against the box down in that neighborhood, preventing them to get into the front case and open that with the appropriate, they have specific clear zones they need to maintain when opening with their equipment that they have. So Bruce put together this drawing and very specifically outlines the front sides and then the fourth side, as they call it, and the number of feet that has to be maintained around that box so that they can get in there and do their restoration work to restore power. So that was a pretty important one that we kind of added midway through the process here, but Utility Commission was very happy that was added. And then the final one was, in our ordinance, we have a provision for site triangles on the corner, if you're on a corner lot where the fence cannot be located, and we have a diagram in here that just shows, as it relates to fences, where the site triangles go. Not any new language, just taking that portion of the site triangle ordinance and then incorporating it somewhat into the language here. So ultimately, the Planning Commission did have a public hearing at their October 25th meeting. Didn't have any public comments received. We had also posted this online, didn't have any comments received. And they recommended that the council take a look at the ordinance language here tonight. And as we've talked about before, there's the new state law that before the council can consider final action on any ordinance amendment or any ordinance that's new, we have to post on our website and in City Hall that we have a 10-day notice before any final vote is taken. So that's something we would need to do if you are looking to move forward on this prior to next month's meeting, or the next meeting here in November. But I'm going to run through the language here again for you. So here's about the clear zones, specifying 2 feet from the edge of a sidewalk or trail, and then the 5 feet from a adjacent public roadway edge, and that just clarifies that more clearly than had been written. The acknowledgement language, if they put it in the easement, they acknowledge that at their own expense, they have to maintain access to that at all times, again, at their own expense, and including existing and future utility infrastructure. So again, this is something that hasn't come up very often, but I just want to make it very clear to everybody. There's a clear zone requirement in item C there. Again, there's a drawing for everybody's benefit at home. 8 feet to the front of the box where the lock is located, 3 feet on the 2 other sides, and then the 4th side has to be the 1 foot clearance on the side for that box. And then the site triangle just referencing another part of the city code, so that fences are required to be out of that site triangle area unless they're under 36 feet or 36 inches tall. And then finally, just clarifying a little bit on the attractive side of the fence facing to the neighbors, basically clarifying that if the post is on the fence, it has to be inside facing your property where you're installing the fence, and then the non-post face facing the neighbors. We had language in there before, it just said the best part of the fence. Well, we had people argue, well, what's the best part of the fence? So to clarify that, other cities have defined that with the post is not the best part of the fence, so the opposite side. So we're just clarifying that here. And other than that, really no other changes to the ordinance. So not the outcome related to the fence height made it to the end, but these other items, the Planning Commission felt it was important to do that regardless. I do have a recommendation from the Planning Commission, as I noted earlier, and staff to introduce this ordinance amendment here tonight. And if so inclined to move forward, we could actually do the second reading at our next meeting after I would post later in the week, should you want to move forward on the website and City Hall.
Yeah. Any questions?
Yes, two and one comment. Under residential fences, the second line, you have two of those in there. I'm assuming one of the of those shouldn't be there.
That's an A.
That's in A, right? Let's see, 1, 2, it would be the second line behind the nearest rear corner of the.
You know, Dave, that's been in there for many years.
Has
That's
it?
old language. So thank you.
Yeah. And the other one, I assume you're going to put the drawings in there, in the actual.
These drawings will be in the actual ordinance.
Good.
Yeah.
It's
We need more of
explanatory.
those in the ordinance, I think.
Yes,
So
you do.
As we amend things, we will continue to add diagrams and things, yes.
Yeah, that's very good. And I'd like to thank you personally and the Planning Commission for going through this. They put a lot of time in on it, from what I can gather.
More than it probably should have, but it was good discussion, I think. Amy, I think you were through most of it.
Yeah.
All of it, so.
It was interesting conversations. Came back, it seemed like it was always every meeting for a while, it was always on the agenda. So, but I think it
Just a quick
worked well.
Quick clarification, Ken, did you take a look at it on the new A where fences can be placed along the property lines provide along property line?
Along, yeah, that's what it says, along property
If
line.
you go to business and industrial fences, it says fences may be located on a lot line. Would we not want to have the same consistency?
Yeah, we'll change that, we'll say along.
Maybe located along a lot line?
Or we'll say along property lines, we'll use that same language.
Okay.
That would be in 3A.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. If not, I guess I'll make a motion to approve the first reading of the ordinance with the changes.
second.
I got a second by Amy Jurek. There's no other comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, passes 4-0. Thank you, Ken. Consent agenda. Anyone have any questions, issues, concerns, and any items in the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Got a motion by Sean Ryan, second by Dave Brusick to approve the consent agenda. If there's no other questions or comments, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, miscellaneous. Patrick, anything?
Nope.
Mitch? Mitch is good. Ken? Mike?
Just we had a good turnout last Thursday. We held the public informational meetings on the 2017 Small Cities Project. Chuck, you and Sean got the overview in your packets for EDA. And then I put a copy in front of David, you and Amy tonight to explain a little bit of the difference between the three portions. One being the commercial rehab, second one being the residential rental rehab, and the third being the owner-occupied residential rehab. Just a few details. We had good turnout. I think we had 6 to 8 people at the commercial meeting from 5 to 6. I think we had 5 to 6 people for the residential rental rehab from 6 to 7, and then at 7:15 to 8, nearly 8:30, we had about a dozen, 15 people in on the residential rehab. So we had good turnout. All the application forms and materials are on the city's website. Ken is taking calls. We are working with Michelle Clark on the Southwest Minnesota Housing Partnership to answer questions, but the access to those funds are really handled on a first-come, first-served basis based on people submitting the appropriate applications and the materials that are required as part of that application. But the first part of it is really just getting those in and getting in a priority ranking. Following that priority ranking, then they will schedule visits out with their property building official that'll come out and take a look at what people want to do, size up the project, take a look at it, put together work orders, ultimately assist in getting bid specification package ready to go, helping the property owner solicit bids, and then going forward with construction. So I don't really expect to see a whole lot till into spring, but that's kind of where that whole program lies, that working with the state to get the last of our MIF monies transferred over hopefully tomorrow to our small cities account, that authority. The grant paperwork, we've submitted all the required documents, so we're waiting for approval on the grant so that the whole 2017 project's ready to go.
Nice. Good. Anything else?
Mike,
Yeah.
anything else?
Oh, I'm sorry, no.
Oh, okay.
I thought-
Amy, you got anything?
No.
Sean?
Nope.
David?
I got one thing that came up while we were up north at the cabin. Listened to a radio announcement about plastic-handled fire extinguishers. Now, these are the little models. Kidde, K-I-D-D-E, has a recall on some 30 million of these units. Typically, you might use them, put them in the back of your trunk or in the boat. And there's a huge recall on them, government recommended recall. And so that if you have one of those, you go online to, you might put this in the paper, Pat, www.kidde.com/home-safety. On there, it describes how you can get those recalled and get new fire extinguishers. So the public might be not aware of this. I just heard about it on the radio up north, out of Ely, and I happen to have 3 of them at home. So I suspect a lot of people might have one or more of those fire extinguishers.
It was on the news also. I saw it on Carolyn,
Okay.
and that's, so
Okay.
it is out there. I haven't seen anything in the paper yet, but it has been out in the
Okay,
local news, so.
good. Thanks, Chuck.
Anything
That's
else? Okay. I don't have anything, so I guess I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second by Dave Brusick. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? We're out of here. We'll see everyone Thursday night.